Welcome to Bursting Through Storytelling. I'm Steve Peterson, the originator of Bursting Through, and I'll also be moderating today's story. The goal of a Bursting Through story is to share something authentic and pure. The stories are told through two different voices, one gay and one straight, each reflecting on the same experience or time frame. The stories are an act of generosity and love from everyday people who live their lives with authenticity. The stories will show us a deeper understanding of a special relationship and hopefully leave us a little better for having heard it. Today we're joined by two women, Paula and Cortland. If you heard our first episode, you may remember Paula because during that episode, she shared her story with her best friend, Lori. Paula has graciously and eagerly returned to tell her story. This time, to tell another story, this time with her daughter, Courtland. As a reminder, Paula married post-high school, had 3 children, divorced her husband, came out, and is now married to a woman. Courtland is her 3rd child and only daughter. Paula affectionately refers to Courtland as sis, right?
Right.
Courtland was 15 and a sophomore in high school when her parents divorced and her life changed in many ways. Ladies, welcome to Bursting Through. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting us. Happy to be here.
All right.
Very happy to be
So
here.
we're going to get right to it. But first, I have a small aside. Why sis? What's that about?
She's just the only girl. My mom's folks and her brother called her sis growing up. She was the only girl in the family, and it's just something that we stuck with.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. Okay. All right. I was just curious. All right. We're going to dive right into it. So, Paula, the first question is to you. So during your first episode of your appearance on Bursting Through Storytelling, we discussed the emotions you experienced when you finally came out publicly. You talked about relief and some feelings of fear and uncertainty, but mostly relief. What we didn't talk about is how you prepared to talk to your daughter about this topic. You must have played it around in your head. So what was your inner dialogue, or was there any?
Oh, there definitely was. Trying to think and find the right time. Because I wasn't only telling her 2 stories or 1 story, I was telling her 2. I'm leaving your dad, and I'm in love with a woman. At a young age, with her only being 15, I was very, very nervous, very scared. Honestly, just very fearful that I would lose our relationship. I told myself, you have to choose your words wisely. You have to be empathetic to her feelings. Give her time, give her space, but be there always if she needs you. And, I did a lot of dress rehearsals, I guess, in my head, what I thought she would say, what I should say. And when it came down to it, it just came from the heart.
Right. But, of course, it's like nerve-wracking and fearful. Oh. And, even though she came from you,
right.
Like you don't know how she's going to react.
Right, exactly. I knew that I had raised her to be loving and accepting of, all kinds of things, all different people, walks of life, all of that stuff. But it's a whole nother thing to live it and live with it.
Well, yeah, totally. That's well said. I mean, it's one thing to think about it in theory, but when you're confronted with the reality, it's a completely different thing. And you can be the most loving, open-minded, caring person, but when all of a sudden it's your reality, it's just different. So Thank you for that. Now, Courtland, what was it like hearing that your mom was gay? I mean, she's your mom. Like, she's your first example of what being a woman is. It had to be difficult to hear. And like, what emotions did you experience?
Lots.
Yeah.
This is going to be really emotional for me because I've never really talked to anyone about this besides my mom. And I think some of the things today that we'll talk about, I don't know that I've even shared with her.
Okay.
My
Please
initial,
take
my
your
first,
time.
sure. My first initial reaction was hurt, betrayal, because I had some inkling that she wasn't gonna be with my dad. I guess I had some inkling that there was something going on and that that was about to happen. I didn't know that it was going to come out to be that she was going to be with a woman, but I was hurt and betrayed because I had asked her prior to her telling me, prior to everything happening, if something was going on, and she initially told me no, which later on when we actually sat down and had the conversation, I asked her why, and her biggest reason was because she couldn't tell me before she told my dad.
Sure.
Now,
Which
when
makes
she
sense
mentioned,
intellectually, but not necessarily emotionally.
right. And one thing that when she came out and told me that it was a woman, I didn't really know how to react. I was shocked. I didn't understand. There was so many emotions because I was also happy. I mean, one of those things that, most people don't really admit, that I didn't want my mom and dad together. They were not in a good, healthy relationship. And I just, for many years, had been wanting my mom to leave my father. Because I felt like she would be a better, happier person if she did. And I knew that my life would be happier because I wouldn't see all the fighting and all of that. But I think when she came out that it was a woman, I was just shocked, surprised, didn't really know how to handle it at first.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's really heavy for a 15-year-old. Now,
Very.
You use the word throughout your answer, you used the word betrayal. And I just wanted to ask a follow-up question on that.
Sure.
Were you betrayed because she had lied to you about her leaving your dad, or were you betrayed because she had lied to you about being gay, or was it both, or was it neither? Or
it was more of leaving my dad, I think, more or less, just because like I said, I had asked her previously if there was someone else, if she was seeing someone else, or if something was going on, and she told me no. And that was really hard for me to accept when she finally told me that yes, she was, because we've always had such a close bond. We had always had that relationship where I told her everything. She knew my deepest and darkest. She was my best friend. She still is my best friend. But back then, she was my everything.
Sure.
And for her to tell me, no, that's not what's going on, and then a couple weeks later find out, yeah, that was what was going on.
Yeah, that's a totally fair and honest answer. So, Paula, what do you think about what Courtlyn just said?
I totally understand why she felt betrayed. There wasn't much of anything that Courtlyn and I didn't talk about. And I agree. Courtlyn and I have always had an extremely close relationship, always considered her one of my best friends. And, it was one of those spots where I had to put on the mother hat one day and the friend hat a different day.
Sure.
And that situation, it just wasn't something that you can't just tell your 15-year-old before you tell your spouse, I'm cheating on your dad. It's with a woman. Now keep this secret.
Right.
I just didn't, that's not fair or responsible to do to a 15-year-old, almost 16-year-old.
Also, like you said, though, it's like, and I'm not a parent, but it's like you're first a parent and then a friend. And hopefully you're a friend. And as as you grow older and she's out on her own now, you hope that changes, but she was still under your care as a child at that point,
Right.
teenager or not. So, the friend thing had to be, quite secondary.
Exactly.
And so that was just another added dynamic. And of course you couldn't tell her before you told him. And also that's a lot for, friend or not, a 15-year-old to handle. I mean, nobody should, nobody should have to keep the burden of that secret. I mean, I'm well over 15 and I still don't want the burden of somebody's secret.
Right.
I mean, so, all right.
And I think that's what made it even harder because, and I don't know, Mom, you might disagree with this, but I feel that up until that point, you were more of a friend to me than you were a parent. We had that connection, and I don't know why, but I just feel like we were more friends than we were mother and daughter, I guess.
I feel in a way that is true, and I feel that's because at that point in my relationship with your father, I didn't really want to be around him.
Right.
I was no longer in love with him. I knew I needed to get away. Before I even, got with Terry and all of that, I knew I needed to end this. And hanging out with you,
putting all your time and energy into me,
right? Then I didn't have any time or energy left to spend with him, and he didn't question it because you were my daughter.
Yeah,
our daughter.
Which is totally natural, but also not the healthiest. I mean,
No.
I mean, it's understandable, totally understandable.
But extremely unhealthy.
And then,
and at 15, it's not like I had a lot of raising left to do with her. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, she wasn't a kid that, because she told me everything, I knew where she was going. I knew who she was hanging out with.
Right.
I didn't have to, she had her foundation of right and wrong and morals and values at that point. It wasn't a lot of, still raising her.
Right. And also, it's like, just this is kind of an aside, because Paula, I've known you for a long time. I mean, I even knew, when we were in high school that you always wanted to be a mom.
Right.
But you particularly wanted a daughter.
Absolutely.
We're just taking nothing away from those two awesome big brothers that Courtlyn had.
Right.
So that's also different. She's the youngest. She's the girl. She's the only one left at home.
Yep.
There's a lot of layers to that,
Exactly.
So, all right. Okay. Well, thank you. Courtlyn, another question for you. As you look back on this time in your life, how did it affect you emotionally? I mean, being 15 and in high school sucks enough without your mom being a lesbian.
Yeah.
It must have been difficult for a while. Maybe it still is sometimes. So what did you experience then?
It was very hard. Growing up in a small town, everyone knows everything. So, I mean, as soon as it came out, I had kids on the school bus calling me a dyke because of my mom's decisions.
Right.
So I got bullied a lot in that way. And then it was also hard with relationships moving forward. At the time, I was with a guy. My mom came out. He said that it wasn't because of my mom, but everything else in the relationship had been fine until my mom came out as a lesbian. And he left me, and I do believe still to this day that it was because of that. And then it kind of got to a point where, because of that and because of the bullying at school, I owned it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into any relationship I go to talk to a guy. I'm going to be like, hey, one of the first things I need you to know is my mom's a lesbian. And if that bothers you, then we can't go forward, because I'm not going to have you.
My girl.
So you kind of went from one extreme to the other. I mean,
I did. I did.
I mean, owning it was, and I'm not pretending to be a psychologist here, but it's like owning it was your way of, taking back the power.
Yep. Exactly.
And I'm going to use some words that maybe one or two of you might not like. I don't know, but it's like in owning the shame and the embarrassment, because there's certainly nothing wrong. And I'm a gay man. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's like, it's still away from the norm and what you are accustomed to, and what the people, to your point, you grew up in a small town. You've gone through all the way through school with these same people, knowing your team, nuclear family, and as a shift. And it's a shift that wasn't your choice.
Exactly.
So, that also had to make it more difficult, because it was your choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. And of course you're going to love your mom, but still.
Right. And
were you angry at her?